Hello, everyone. Welcome. I was trying to make sure that my microphone was working. It's been a minute since I've streamed. I have to double check everything. You guys couldn't hear me at first. Hello, thank you for joining us. Hello. Whether you are joining from YouTube or Twitch or Kick or Patreon or some other social media, or maybe you're just finding your way here for the first time, I'm really glad you're here. If you're new here, welcome. I am Anna, the creator and voice of the brand. And if you've been here since the beginning, or you're coming back after some time away, or somewhere in between, I'm so happy to see you again. Thanks for tuning in. Rox is also very happy. She's waggling her tail for you guys, as you can see in the camera. This community exists because so many of us are just trying to step into a more intentional way of living, learning the basics we never did maybe, understanding our options for self-reliance and how to live more sustainably, how to take more control over what we consume, and how we nourish ourselves. Also, how dependent we are and aren't on big systems and corporations. Maybe you're like me and you're 30 something and you never learned a lot of the basic life skills surrounding a household or keeping a household, that allows you to be a little bit more self-sufficient. Or maybe you've always known the basic life skills and you just want to offer your own experience or refresh your skills. Or maybe you're somewhere completely different, but learning and sharing knowledge with a community of like-minded individuals is your goal. Whatever your situation is, you will definitely learn something here. Excuse me. And you certainly have a place here with us. We learn new things all the time. I, for one, am learning new things constantly. We are definitely not about perfection or expert level things of any shape or form, which is why we have this learning series, just to work through things together as a community. Our goals here are obviously learning together, building skills very slowly, because we don't want to dive into anything and take shortcuts that are unnecessary, and just creating a life, that just feels a little bit, I guess, more capable and more ours. So whether you're actively chatting today, or maybe you're just lurking and hanging out quietly, whatever the situation is, both are completely welcome here. And if you're catching us on the replay, I'm so glad that you're here choosing to learn alongside us at your own pace. If you didn't know, you can always catch the latest schedule details on Patreon and Discord. And of course, if you want deeper community connection, Patreon and Discord are linked and they are always available. They are in the link tree as well. All right, before we jump into today's learning segment, finally, the very awaited Canning 101 Part 6. How is everyone doing today? How's your week been? What's going on in your world? If you're watching this on the replay, I hope you are having a fabulous week. If you're not having a great week or day or whatever the situation is, then maybe just being here and chilling can kind of ease that a bit. I hope that for you. I'll share a quick update from my side while chat rolls in. I know I've already seen John. Hi, John. How are you doing? It's so good to see you. How's your week been? How's life going? Life has been, excuse me, my gosh, busy on my end. As you can probably hear, I'm battling allergies right now. So we're just gonna get through it. It's okay. I'll just be clearing my voice and maybe sniffling a little bit, but it's okay. We take allergy medicine. Everything will be fine. So that's been a little bit rough, but besides that, oh my gosh, so much work has been done on the house, you guys. So many things have been finished. The fireplace, and like tile surround area is all finished. The baseboards are now all measured out and they'll be getting painted and going up this weekend. And then from there, it's basically like all of the kind of final little details, if you will, that have to get done, like staging bedrooms and like, prepping and painting a few areas that didn't get it in the first Passover, touching up caulk and things like that all over the house, all over needs to be done. Touching up paint, like I said, kind of everywhere. We have a few like random things that we have to touch up in a guest bathroom, as far as like a faucet and this like little ledge thing that we have to build. Still have to clean up the front yard and then kind of do some more cleaning up in the backyard. Luckily, most of it's done, but we've still got like a good chunk ahead of us, but it seems so small comparatively. Getting these big jobs done has been huge. So we are we're on the the home stretch, I feel like. But we got all the basement painted and all of that stuff finished, all of the fixtures and things put back in. We're gonna we're gonna take out a couple of fixtures here in the basement and replace those. Oh my goodness, you guys. It's never ending over here. If you didn't know, I am preparing to sell my house right now. So we are in the thick of home renovations, projects, prepping, condensing things, all of that kind of stuff. I have an escape dog. I had to yell at her. Hold on. She might be leaving for real. Let's see. Will she come back in the camera? What? Oh, she just ran over. You guys can't see her. She's back. Anyways, lots of fun stuff like that, though. And lots of, like, moving random furniture around to, like, stage things and blah, 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 blah. All of those things, you know? Yeah. Hi, Elijah. How the heck are you doing? I'm live right now. Can you believe it? It's so good to see you. Speaking of, we have struggled lately between like having issues, which were totally expected, and I tried my best to prepare you guys for, with like the home renovations and not being able to stream at certain points. But my goodness, the last like 2 times for sure, maybe 3 even, that I've tried to stream it has been so very frustrating. Last time was just all a conflict with OBS. I don't know what was going on. That's why I don't know if anybody caught it, but I made sure to do a test stream yesterday, like just a quick one to make sure that everything went through, and I quickly deleted it. But like, my gosh, I haven't had issues like that for a while. So anyhow, all of that is resolved. I'm very thankful for that, but we're finally here. It's exciting. It's going. Oh my gosh, getting through the workday tomorrow and headed out to camp for the weekend. Nice. Do you have like a specific spot that you like to go camping? Do you have like areas, or are you just kind of going for an adventure? Put stream in a beverage at me distracted. Oh my gosh. I totally know the vibe. I totally know it. What time do you get done tomorrow? Do you get to like leave while it's still decently light out and stuff? What kind of camping do you do? Do you do actual camping, or like in a what do you do? I mean, it's all camping, but like, do you do tent camping, or what's your... I know I've missed you too. It's been a while. I'm so glad to see you. I hope life has been treating you well. Cabin, nice. Oh, that's nice. That's awesome. Yeah, that's fabulous. A cabin that's been in your family since your mom was a little kid is amazing. 10 to 3. 2 hours from the office. Okay, not bad. That's exciting. I hope you have some awesome chill camp activities planned. I don't know. Obviously I'm a foodie and so are you, so I'm sure there's going to be some good food happening. People are like, oh, you can't really cook much when you're camping. What the fuck? I feel like I cook more camping than I do any other time. I'm not going to lie. But like good stuff too, not just like crappy things, like very like good kind of gourmet things, you know? But then again, I also, aside from food, I love going on little hikes, little nature hikes. I love, obviously campfire is like one of my favorite things. Like you gotta have your campfire nice and big and have your roasties, whatever you're roasting. Back to food again. Clearly you know where my mind is tonight. Oh no, your job's kicking your ass. Amen. Boss stressing you out all the time. Oh no. That sucks. I'm so sorry. Like, there's nothing worse than already having to work, right? Like, none of us like having a job or working. I mean, it's not our favorite thing. But then to have like the regular politics, right, that come with it, and then that kind of bullshit with the boss stressing you out. Like, the boss is supposed to do the opposite. Make it, like, that's literally, in my opinion anyways, bosses, like, as a boss, that's how I always performed, is it's my job to make my employees work more streamlined, more efficient, more whatever. Obviously, they need to do their fair share of things, right, and be, like, delegating things and be organized and whatever, but, like, that's a boss's job. Don't stress me out. That sucks. Oh, that's the worst. I'm sorry. You get to have any days off coming up, Elijah? Are you doing anything fun for yourself? I hope you can do something nice. Not sure how much cooking. Going to a place we like tomorrow. I'm not sure what we're doing Sunday. Are there, like, food places by the cabin? Like, it's, I'm assuming, not, like, too far out of the way. Is that kind of the vibe? Like, you can go get whatever you need or whatever. How fun. Oh my gosh. Family, friends coming over to hang tomorrow night. That sounds like a great time to me, honestly. Grabbed a handle of Jack yesterday, so I'm good to chill for the weekend. I love that so much. TikTok, time for class. Better sit down. Don't be late. Hi, Tadlunk. How are you? It's good to see you. Few small towns. Nice. So you're not, like, out there. Like, without, you know, amenities. We like amenities. Anymore. Like, I used to only go whoa, I almost combined a bunch of words. Tent camping. But nowadays, I'm like, and it got to the point where it was very bougie. It was originally not, and then it became very bougie tent camping. And then now I'm to the point where I'm like, I need a trailer, or better yet, a cabin. A trailer's nice because I can take it different places, like a really nice one, you know? But I don't know. Ay. Off today and tomorrow. Today, tomorrow, and Sunday. Ah, dang it. And they're cutting your hours. I'm so sorry. That's so frustrating. I mean, on the bright side, you get a little bit of time away from that stress, and that's going to be nice for your nervous system. But, like, damn it, that sucks having hours cut. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we're not talking Evil Dead. Not completely in the woods. I love that. I love it. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I haven't been camping for a good, like, 3 or 4 years, which is really sad because I used to go camping pretty much every weekend, and that's not an exaggeration. Like, I literally went camping every weekend, and these like, the little dogs, this little one that you can see, like, frontmost in the camera, has never even really been, so that's a bummer. But I can't do that shit. Like, one of the last times we went, I woke up feeling like I was dying. I'm not exaggerating. Like, my lungs felt like they were collapsing from, like, and I have really bad asthma, so let's preface that as well. But feeling like my lungs were just so, like, I was gonna die and I couldn't breathe. Like, my whole body was so sore and upset. Like, I was on the floor from the freaking, what do you call it? Air mattress, like, deflating. There we go. Overnight. Like, oh my God, you guys, it was so bad. Ugh. I just woke up feeling like a zombie and I was like, never again. And then we went home and that was the last adventure. I mean, I've done other adventures, more car-based adventures and, like, little hikes, but not actual camping, you know? See, that's awesome, though, that you still, like, that you love the job and your regulars and all of that stuff, too, though, Elijah. Like, which also makes it even crappier. Like, don't cut my hours. I hope your boss comes to their senses. Is everybody's hours getting cut? Like, is there anything you can do to, like, get more back? It's so frustrating. Ugh, regardless, though, I'm sending you all the loves, and I hope that you take some time for yourself in the next couple days and just decompress, de-stress, all of those good things. All right, guys, if you're just arriving in, welcome in. Say hi if you want, or settle in quietly if that's your vibe, whatever the situation is. Get comfy. We are about to officially jump in. Dun 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 dun. Oh, that's nice. Maybe it's not so nice that it's not just you. either way, I guess it's not great when hours are being cut, but if they're doing it to multiple people, like, hopefully they'll let you back in. So, you know what I mean? Like, hopefully someone, I mean, I have a feeling it sounds like they're maybe pushing some people out. So maybe if that does happen and you end up staying, you can get some hours back. That's so frustrating, though. I'm so sorry. I know there's probably a lot more at play that I do not know anything about, so I can only say so much. But just, I know you're a hard worker and you do good work. Yeah, exactly. Show them you're working hard, working strong, kicking butt, all the things. I'm gonna switch to YouTube. Just thought it was easier for me to fall asleep. Is there better on Twitch or YouTube? You would say to stay on. Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, it doesn't really matter between the two right now. And if YouTube is easier for you, that totally works too. Because that channel has been so like inactive for so long, it's good to get a little traffic over there. So if you were already wanting to, that is totally good. I mean, if not, then obviously Twitch is Twitch. You've always been here. But yeah, whatever works for you. Thanks for asking, you little sweetie pie. Acting like I'm not doing so. Yeah, you just keep working your patootie off, because I already know that's what you do, and he's gonna see the light. Some bosses have problems. Tea indeed. All right, friends, loves, all of the aboves, let's go ahead and get started with today's stream. I'm super excited. Let me pull up everything for you guys on this screen so you can actually see it. Yes. Can you see the screen? You can. Excellent news. Okay. Let's move this over here. There we go. Just gonna turn off. I know exactly what you mean, Tad. Tad lunky. I do. I'm just so thankful that you're here anyways, and that you've been here with us for so many moons. I feel so thankful. We have the sweetest community. You've been listening to 3 Drake albums? Oh my gosh. I feel like that could be some fuel for something. I don't know. Have you been listening to them at work? Can you even do that? Is that a thing? I don't know. I know some jobs aren't allowed to. All right. Let me get this all pulled up over here. Okay. So, tonight... Yeah, the 3 new ones. I was assuming that's what you're meaning. Tonight's where everything... Well, maybe it's whatever time of day it is for you, depending on your time zone. But tonight, for me, is where everything that we have covered so far really starts to connect in a practical way. In parts 1 through 5, we built foundation. We talked about the science behind, food preservation, the history of it, why it's even a thing in the first place, why people need it, why we need it, why certain safety rules exist, how processing works, and how equipment and workflow actually function together in a real kitchen. I love that. Side note, being able to listen to music at work is one of the best things. I'm so much more productive when I can listen to music or a podcast, but no doubt music, even if podcasts aren't allowed or whatever, let me listen to some music. You will get so much more productivity out of me. I don't know if I feel like there's a handful of the population that is that way. I know I'm not alone in that. It just makes me work better. Anyways, but up until this point, most of, what we've really learned has been conceptual. Yes. So tonight is the real bridge. We are moving from just understanding canning to actually preparing to do it. Bloop, 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 bloop. This is where you'd insert one of those shimmery sounds. Do you know what I'm talking about? The whatever, you know what I'm saying. Anyways, so we are really applying our knowledge, and we are doing things. We're getting so close to actually making our first batch of goodies to can. I'm very excited for us. So there are two really big things that make the transition from going to concept to reality possible. First, understanding our ingredient roles. We need to understand the ingredients that are showing up in tested recipes, not like just the way they taste, obviously, because we want them to taste good, but we also need to understand like what they do. The second big part of that is learning how to take everything that we've learned so far and actually plan a real canning project from start to finish, including how you'd set up your kitchen, or in this case, my kitchen. So that is what we are going to do tonight. We're going to slow down just a little bit before we dive in, and we're going to take the ingredients kind of one by one and build all the way up into a full mock canning day and like kitchen mock setup situation. Don't worry, it will all make sense as we go through. Don't you worry your beautiful little heart about that. So let's start with something that most people don't really think about when they first get into canning. I don't think Simon's here. Oh my God, this is so funny. I forgot I put this in here. It's so stupid, but so funny. Because Simon, our beloved mod, his name is Simon Mindset. It's not Simon Mindset. Lol. Anyway, I'm going to have to send this to him so I don't forget. The thing that people don't really think about when they first get into canning, not every ingredient in a recipe is there for taste, right? I think that we can understand this even with baking. Like, you don't typically taste, I don't know, baking powder or like baking soda in your ingredients. I mean, you fucking shouldn't. If you do, you should probably check out what you're doing. But those are necessary ingredients to get the proper recipe, right? Typically for like a rise or like a thickening or whatever the situation is. That's probably one of the biggest mindset shifts in home food preservation, but not Simon. You liked that, John. I just thought it was so dumb I had to say it. Oh my God. Killing smells. Sing to it all the time. I love that for you, Elijah. I can picture you bopping along to it. So, like I was saying, function matters more than taste. And that's something that we really have to think about in canning. Remember, you're not baking, you're not cooking, you are canning. Now, can your cooked product go into canning? Yes, but this is two separate processes, right? So you're worried about those types of ingredients when you're making that recipe, according to true, safe, tested recipe standards, right? And then you need to separate it. So we're really used to cooking where ingredients are like flexible, right? You add a little more garlic here, like a little more onion, salt, a little whatever you're going to do, a little less pepper, you swap some herbs around, like, I don't know, whatever you're doing, but everything like still kind of works generally because you're still following somewhat of a recipe, right? That's not really how canning works. You definitely have consequences if you make the wrong substitutions. So, in tested recipes, ingredients, I don't know what I was going to say there, ingredients fall into really just a few different categories when it comes to canning. Some are there for flavor, for sure, right? But other things exist for reasons like safety and preservation, texture, consistency, or like basic chemical balance. And the tricky part is they don't always look important. But I don't know about you. I'm not like a scientist. I did really well in science, actually, though I placed in the top 5 of my region, I will tell you, in my in my testing. But anyways, I am not a scientist, and I don't want to try and like make new recipes and worry about what's going to get effed up after I spend a bunch of money and time on creating something to can and preserve and then it goes wrong. So I think even though something doesn't look important or seem important, it's important. Just go with it. And if you don't like it, find another recipe. There are so many tested official recipes. Like, it's just so easy. But like I was saying, the tricky part is these things that exist for like, you know, safety, texture, consistency, whatever, they don't always look important. Something like vinegar might just look like a flavor choice, or, you know, sugar might just look like, I don't know, sweetness. Salt might just maybe look like a seasoning, or maybe if you know a little bit and have paid attention to the hints I've been dropping, it's obviously has something to do with some pickling too. But in canning, those ingredients can actually be part of the structure that keeps the food safe and stable over time. So you have to remember that we're not just cooking something to consume now, or even in maybe like a couple weeks, or even in like a month or two. Like, this stuff can last up to typically like a year, depending on what it is. So we really want to make sure that we are keeping things stable. So as we go through the next sections, I want you and me, I need to do this as well, to start asking a different question. Not what does it taste like, but what is this doing in the recipe? What it do, baby? Okay. Let's talk about acids. Bum, ba, da, bum. Because one of the most important categories in all of home canning, I'm clapping, I don't know if you guys can hear that to get my emphasis through, is acids. Yes. When we talk about vinegar, lemon juice, and citric acid, we are really talking about one core idea here, and that is just simply that acidity is a safety barrier. Okay? And it's, if you think about this, I don't know if you guys already knew this, but it's a lot of the reasons why they'll include, like with raw fish, they'll include citrus and things like that, because it's not just because they go together, like they taste well paired together, but it's literally because the lemon juice, like the citric acid in it, essentially can break down and cook, quote unquote, not really, but in a way, parts of the fish or the whatever, you know, seafood that you're eating that's raw. So, and I think they also do that with raw beef. Am I tripping on that? Like pate and stuff. Yes, ceviche. Oh my god, I was like, I know I'm missing something silly there. There's a whole other that's like, yeah, ceviche, seafood and all of that. Like, it's used in all of this, in the juices and all of that, because it really does help kind of make it a little safer to consume. And I think a lot of people who, yeah, tartar is like, has its, what does it have as its safety barrier? It's not acidic. It's got more like, I don't know. I don't know enough about these fancy things, I must say, but I want to go back up and read your last message. Pause on our acid conversation for a moment. Okay, it reminds me of an interview that Alton Brown did a while back. He said, on Good Eats, they didn't set out to make good food. They set out to make sense. If they could not rationalize an ingredient, even if it compromised the flavor of the dish, they left it out. That's honestly wild, like, to think about it, honestly. But if they can't, like, rationalize it, like, that's wild to think about, honestly. But it makes all the sense, too. What is tartar preserved with? Now I have so many questions. Anyways, back on topic, because your girl has ADHD. Yes, she does. So, before we go any further, I want to make a really important distinction, I think, that trips people up, like myself early on when I was first learning about this. And I'm still very much a beginner, just a reminder, learning this with you. I'm just learning a little bit before you so I can help us learn together. Anyway, so something that really, I think, trips people off is when we say vinegar in canning, we are actually talking about two completely different uses. So One is vinegar as a food ingredient inside tested recipes, like pickles, relishes, and like anything where acidity is part of the preservation system itself, right? And we've hit on vinegar just a little bit, but I just want to like drive it home and then differentiate a bit here. So, one vinegar, like I said, is like the food ingredient inside tested recipes. And in that context, you're almost always dealing with five. Oh my God. I forgot I put this in here. And then I just looked over at the slides on the screen. Holy shit. Okay, that made me laugh. When we say, oh my God, sorry. My head just went in 3 different directions. So in that context that we're talking about, you're almost always dealing with 5% acidity vinegar, unless a tested recipe explicitly says otherwise. There's a reason for this though. That 5%, and you'll see this on like canning vinegar is what they'll call it, or like you know what I mean? Like some variation of like vinegar for canning, or like fruit and vegetable vinegar, whatever. It'll always pretty much say 5% acidity vinegar, and that's what you want to look for this purpose, unless the recipe says otherwise, right? But the number's not random. It's not like a branding or like random preference. It wasn't like, oh, this is cheap, so this is what all the big box stores use or whatever. It's the baseline assumption used when those recipes are tested for safety. So basically your 5% vinegar is like is it control in your scientific experiment? That'd be your control, right? Because you're using it in every different variation of it. Yeah. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I know you will. Keep me honest. But yes, so if you change that, if you dilute it, if you substitute it, if you use a lower acidity vinegar, if you use a higher acidity vinegar, you aren't just changing flavor, right? You are changing one of the core safety conditions that the recipe depends on. So just remember that if you change what is required as far as vinegar, it's not just like, oh, I can just use this 4%. It's totally fine. Like, no, you need to follow the recipes, as I've said, because it's science. And unless you are a scientist, you aren't just changing the flavor. Okay. You're changing the core safety conditions. So just remember that that's kind of the first use for it. Okay. The second use of vinegar is completely different. And this is what we have talked about already. This was really, I think this was part 2 or part 3. This was in the beginning of our series. Go back if you haven't watched it, by the way. You can do that. Go back. Don't worry. We'll still be here and then you can come rewatch this. Anyway, so the second use of vinegar is completely different. And that's what we've hit on a lot. And that's like being used as a kitchen and like preparation tool. So things like cleaning jars, removing like mineral buildup, water spots, helping with like sanitation during prep, reducing fogging on glass surfaces, all of that kind of stuff. In those cases, vinegar is not part of food safety formula, obviously. It's just a mild acid being used for like cleaning properties, essentially. So the key rule is really simple. Inside of recipes, vinegar is a measured safety component and you need to do exactly what it says. Outside of recipes, vinegar is a cleaning tool and you can kind of just YOLO with that, okay? I mean, obviously followed like general safety. Don't just throw vinegar and everything. But those two rules are not interchangeable. You have inside recipes, it's measured, right? That's measured. You're following exactly what it says because it's your safety component. Outside of recipes, it's more of a cleaning tool. Doesn't so much matter, just more or less a mild acid. Think of it that way. Okay. Oh my gosh, I see you in chat, Look, what are you saying? The picture's throwing you off. It did though. It cracked me up. I looked over and was like, oh Lord. It's been a few weeks since I made this, so I completely forgot. Ooh, okay, wait. Okay, with beef, the only potentially harmful components are on the surface and not the interior. For some carpaccio, people sear the outside. That's right. Okay, yeah, to kill what might be in the inside, but a lot of it comes down to clean, reputable sources for beef. Okay. Less about preservations, yeah, like it is for some seafood. That makes sense. I believe the only fish certified for raw, untreated consumption, yeah, salmon and tuna. I mean, that Yeah, oysters, all of those, right, totally. But yeah, no, salmon and tuna are typically the only, I mean, there's other ones, but I think those are the only ones that you should ever be trusting. It's just the FDA. There's some things that are widely, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. Same with, honestly, that's the same kind of philosophy with canning as well. The FDA has their very like stringent things. They only accept certain things as safe, but obviously there's a little bit of give in that, but I just, not too much, you know. Interesting how that works. It's good that we have it that way, okay, folks? Just as a reminder, the FDA is good. Please do not vote to remove it. Please do not allow it to ever be removed. Thank you, Lord. Oh, God. I could say so much more on that, but we're just going to go to the next slide. Now, staying in the recipe context, let's move to lemon juice. Lemon juice, yep. Same idea here, but the key concept shifts slightly. I have a fresh lemon here and lemon juice, okay? And I want you to just pay attention to that, okay? Bottled lemon juice is used in tested recipes because it is standardized. Fresh lemon juice can vary quite a bit depending on ripeness, variety, growing conditions, size, how long it's been stored, how it's been stored, etc., etc., etc. So when a recipe calls for bottled lemon juice, it's not because like fresh lemon juice is bad or inferior. And you're not wrong in thinking like, well, I want the most, like the freshest ingredients in my fresh food that I'm going to be like nourishing myself with. And it makes sense because I'm the same way. But this is why I did the extra due diligence in researching this. They're not the same. They are not created equally. Bottled juice is predictable. It's a constant, it's a test, it's a safety standard. Squeezed juice has no predictability. It's not bad. It's not about anything like that. Predictability in canning is just what allows recipes to be safely tested and repeated. And that's the biggest part for us, right? Is that we just want to be able to repeat our processes and have them be simple and safe. Safe is the biggest part of it because you don't want to waste all of that time and money preparing things and preserving things only for them to be bad. So just remember, lemon juice, not created the same. Use bottled. The recipe will tell you how much to use. It will tell you what to and what not to use. If there's a certain kind it requires. I don't think I've ever really seen anything too picky on that. But anyways, just follow your recipe. Remember, predictability is what allows you to have safe and repeatable recipes. Then you have citric acid. We haven't talked a lot about this, but it is something that a lot of beginners like myself are very unfamiliar with, or at least less familiar with. If you've used it before in stuff, then that's awesome because you can use it as kind of a replacement for like lemon juice. But it's typically used in tomato products. Because tomatoes sit right on the edge of acidity levels where safety becomes more sensitive. Remember in the beginning in parts 1 and 2 when we would talk about pH levels and we would talk about properly acidified tomatoes and the difference between that. And I said, don't worry, we'll cover what that means later on. Well, we're covering that now. So properly acidified means that you have done it incrementally controlled to basically adjust your acidity. So because your tomatoes sit right on the edge of acidity levels, you have to often and pretty much always use some type of like citric acid additive. So instead of relying on variable ingredients like fresh acid sources, citric acid gives you basically this precise controlled adjustment to your acidity. And all of this ties back to, like I was saying, what we've talked about in the earlier series. Acidity is one of the main factors that determines whether something can be safely processed in a boiling water bath, for example, versus needing a pressure canner or even additional safety controls thereafter. So when you see acid in a recipe, don't think of it as seasoning, and that includes obviously lemon juice because I feel like that would be a little more season adjacent in your mind than a citric acid would be. But think of it as structurally, or just think of it as like a structural safety component in the recipe's design. Okay, so it's there because it is a safety component. We need it, but it's also structural to the recipe. And depending on what you're doing, especially if it's tomatoes, you have to have things like these. Which again, don't worry, your recipes your recipes will tell you what needs to be done and all of that. But yeah, Otis says hi in the background. All right, so let's talk about salt. What it actually does. Salt is one of those ingredients that can actually create a lot of confusion in canning, and I got a little bit confused by it, so we're going to spend just a little beat on it. I don't think we need to, really nail it home, but like, let's talk about it a little bit. So people see pickling salt or like canning salt and assume that it's some kind of like required preservation chemical. But that is not really what's happening. In most cases, salt is not there as the primary safety mechanism. It's there for quality. It affects flavor and texture and appearance. So, for example, table salt often contains anti-caking agents that cloud brines. Kosher salt behaves differently by volume, which can throw off consistency. And then you have pickling salt, which is fine and pure, but it's why it's often recommended, not because it's like magical, but because it behaves really predictably. So if you participated in today's, or was it yesterday when I posted that? I'm losing track of days. I think it was yesterday. If you participated in the most recent Patreon activity, the latest one posted, a little bit of a spoiler, but there was salt in there. And if you didn't see what kind of salt it was an iodized salt. And iodized salt is not inherently bad, but I wanted to talk about it for a minute because it definitely doesn't behave quite the same way as we would think it does. Salt is not necessarily universally required for safety in canning recipes, okay? Sometimes it is a part of the preservation system, like maybe it has to be there and it is completely necessary, but very often it is not. So what that means is we can't assume salt is optional or required without looking at the specific tested recipe. I know. That's what I was saying. I just really want to hit that home. The distinction matters a lot, especially for beginners who want to like reduce salt or modify recipes, because here's kind of the kicker, okay? And I know I've been saying don't modify your recipes and follow your recipe and blah, 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 and you really need to, but like sometimes you actually can modify the salt in recipes. And sometimes you really shouldn't, okay? Come here. Why are you whining? My dog's over here whining at me. Sometimes you really shouldn't. And it kind of knowing the difference is part of learning canning, right? And going through the experience. But just as a rule of thumb, and especially for beginners, it's just not the best thing to be doing in practice. So just remember. Just remember. Wait. Side note, one of the best restaurant puns I've seen was a British chip shop called a Salt and Battery. That's amazing. Like Salt Bay. Oh man. Amazing, huh? Salt. I can't. My dog might start yelling at us again here in a minute. All right, so sometimes salt is optional, sometimes it's essential, sometimes you shouldn't adjust it, but the recipe will usually say, do not motherfucking adjust this in their own way, right? They'll probably say it professionally, but like they will tell you not to do it. So just pay attention to your recipe. All right, now, sugar. Excuse me. Sugar is another ingredient that people often misunderstand in preservation. At first glance, it seems like it's just there to like make things taste good. Honestly, for me, that's what I would assume. Like when you put sugar into your jam or your jelly or whatever, like it's it's for taste preference. That's what I always thought. It is part of it. Okay. So we're partly right, but sugar also plays a really large role, probably larger than we understand, in texture, in gel formation, and then overall product structure. So, like I was saying, in jams and jellies especially, sugar is the main ingredient that interacts with your pectin. And it will also interact with your acid, so kind of like a trio there, to help create that like set, that like thickened consistency that people expect in like a jam or a jelly, right? So one thing to note, white sugar is a like standard predictable baseline. Brown sugar is a controlled variation, like flavor and color shifts. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that in a moment. I just want to bring that up right now so you kind of, because I know someone is wondering, well, what about, can you use different kinds of sugars? And I'm still curious about even like coconut sugars and stuff like that, but I feel like it's kind of a case by case. Anyway, so like I was saying, sugar plays a big role not only in your taste, but texture, gel formation, and like your product structure overall. So when you start reducing sugars, you are not just making something less sweet, you're actually changing how the product behaves physically. That is why there are low sugar recipes and low sugar pectin, things like that exist as their own systems. They're not just like less sugar variations. They're different formulations that are designed to still set correctly under different conditions. So again, the key idea is you can't always change sugar without changing the outcome of the recipe. Now, there's a second layer to sugar that's important to understand, which is why I try to include a variety of sugary things, sugar-looking stuff, to give you the notion. This is where things kind of move from don't change things casually into understanding controlled variations, because not all sugars behave exactly the same way in canned or preserved products. For example, white sugar is pretty much the standard in most tested jam and jelly recipes because it provides a neutral flavor and it gives you a really predictable gel formation. But brown sugar can be used in certain applications. Yeah, I like what John's saying. Brown sugar can affect acidity because molasses is acidic. Exactly. Things like fruit butters, apple, or like pear preserves, barbecue sauces, things like that, syrups, and like even certain pie fillings can incorporate brown sugar perfectly well. But there are a few trade-offs that you have to understand. So we have flavor profile first and foremost. Brown sugar will add a rich caramel-like, or molasses specifically note, right? Because it has molasses. That works extremely well for things like fruits and apples, and not that apples aren't fruits. Wow. Fruits like apples and pears and peaches and I don't know, probably some other fruits that I can't think of, where those deeper flavors really like complement the fruit, but it can easily overpower more delicate fruits. So think about like your strawberries, raspberries, mixed berry jam, stuff like that will really overpower it and not necessarily add to it. So like think about a apple brown sugar jam, right? Like that sounds appealing because it goes together and it will work. But a brown sugar strawberry jam might not quite give you the same effect, or you would have to somehow adjust the recipe or find a recipe that specifically has brown sugar as the component, right? So just understand your substitution limits. While you can use brown sugar as a full substitute in certain recipes, I said, many extension-based or like tested guidelines recommend limiting it to like a partial substitution, usually around like half of the total sugar, so you don't disrupt the intended balance of the recipe. The other thing that is kind of something to watch out for when you're using a brown sugar, for example, is like color and appearance, right? Like because of the molasses content, brown sugar will naturally darken the final product. that can be really desirable in things like barbecue sauces or like apple butters or, I don't know, peach jam or something. But it probably isn't going to be so much ideal in like clear or bright jams where appearance really matters. It can also slightly change texture, sometimes resulting in like a thicker or denser set depending on what your recipe calls for and how you substitute it out. And in high heat applications, like some pressure canned items, sugars with higher molasses content can occasionally contribute to scorching if not carefully managed. And I feel like I'm the type of person that would end up scorching it and not realizing it until I go to eat it 6 months down the road and be so upset about it. Like, because scorching is also something that can really happen to even like very experienced bakers, cookers, canners, whatever. Like, it's so easy to do. So anyways, molasses can just be a little bit tricky to work with versus just straight up cane sugar, right? There are cases where you generally don't want to use darker sugars at all, especially in recipes like I was saying where like clarity and brightness or like precise gel structure is important. Certain jellies, certain like delicate fruit spreads or other types of like preserve spreads, whatever, insert your flavor here. Those things, in those cases, white sugar remains like the safest and most predictable option. So the takeaway is not like you can't use brown sugar. It's just you can use it, but only when you understand what it changes and only in recipes where those changes are acceptable or like intentional, right? You don't want to just be like, oh shit, I'm out of sugar, I'm going to throw in this brown sugar real quick. Like, plan ahead. If you're planning to use brown sugar instead, make sure it works with your recipe or find a different recipe. Now, let's, and this back to what I was kind of talking about with the low sugar. Low sugar definitely requires more of a special formulation. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this because it's typically not something that you can just throw in. You cannot take a normal recipe that calls for normal sugar and just substitute it with what you think for Splenda or Truvia or maple syrup or honey or whatever. I mean, there's even like some people use like the apple, what is it called? Condensed apple juice. Is it condensed? Is that what I'm thinking of? But anyways, all those kinds of stuff, sweet and low, blah, blah, whatever, pick your poison. Like, it's a whole recipe system change and it does require special formulation, but there are so many recipes out there. Like, as I was researching this, there are tons of low sugar, like anything that I could find that I wanted to make regular sugar amount, I could find the low sugar version of it out there, a tested, safe recipe. So just know that like you can easily find it out there. Just please don't try and use a low sugar or a sugar substitute in a recipe that requires regular cane sugar. That is the biggest takeaway. So, pectin. Let's talk about pectin. So, pectin is basically what allows jams and jellies to gel and hold that gel-like structure. Without it, you will not be getting that classic jam texture. You will get more of like a syrup or a sauce. Yes, concentrate. Thank you. Well, what the heck is that juice called? I used to drink it all the time when I was little. Those little, you'd put them in the freezer. I used to like to just take a spoon and like eat them. I wasn't ever allowed to have very many spoonfuls, or you take the whole thing and you like put it in a pitcher and with water and let it like thaw out and stuff. That was childhood. So there are two main forms of pectin: powdered and liquid. The important thing here is that they, excuse me, I just yawned in the middle of that, my gosh, are not interchangeable in like any sort of casual way. I know, once again, can't just do whatever you want when you're canning. I'm sorry. You can to a point, okay, but not with this kind of stuff. The important part to remember is that recipes are designed specifically around one form or the other. You're either going to have a powdered pectin or you're going to have a liquid pectin. Whoa. Because they behave differently during cooking and settling, cooling, all of that. So if a recipe calls for liquid pectin, it's not a suggestion. It's not something that you can just be like, well, I only have powder, so I'm going to use the same amount. No, it's literally part of the timing. It's part of the chemistry of the set. Like, you will not get the same recipe, and you will probably F it up and waste your money and time, which we don't want to do. So this is one of those areas where people often think it's probably fine if I swap it. I have actually watched and witnessed people on the social medias where they just, it's fine, this will turn out right. And I I don't ever think it turns out the way that they intended it to turn out. That's for sure. They may pretend it does, but it doesn't ever look right to me. So I think in reality, consistency issues really start to show up when you start to just be like frivolously, oh, I can just use this instead, or oh, my mom always did this, or my grandma always did this, and blah blah blah. But like, you may not have the exact same kitchen setup as them, and the exact same airflow, and the exact same, you know, heat consistency, and blah blah blah. So like, just remember, as a rule of thumb, follow the recipes, follow what they call for. Now we want to talk about something that causes a lot of confusion online. Some more of it. Oh, and this is your guide to tell you precision. Okay? Remember, timing matters, chemistry, all those things. This is precision. Okay, so thickeners like cornstarch and flour cause so much confusion, and I don't understand why. I'll be watching canning, like, recipe, I don't know, videos, shorts, whatever you want to call them, and I'll see this all the time where they're like, oh shoot, I don't have cornstarch, I'm just gonna use a little bit of this flour to thicken, and that confused me. Like, I didn't understand it. So when you think about traditional cooking, cornstarch and flour and whatever, those are normal thickeners, right? But in canning, they can create problems with heat penetration and density. So that, and we're not just talking about the issue where it's like, you know, it could make it not taste right or not turn out right or whatever. Your shit could literally blow up. Like, if you don't, and I don't mean to like terrify anybody or like thwart you from doing it, but like, you need to understand that, like, they don't say, hey, use cornstarch in this specifically and only use this amount and then put all this heat over it, right? They don't say that like just willy-nilly because it's like, oh, you could do it within this range or whatever. They give you those specific details because that's what they know is safe and will not blow your home up, or your oven, or your jars, or your pressure cooker canner. I mean, not cooker, whoa, pressure canner. So just remember that. Just remember that, okay? If you're fucking with density, you're fucking with the overall heat penetration of your recipe, and that affects your safety. So canning is partly about how heat moves through the jar, right? We've learned a lot about that. So if something becomes too dense or too thick in an uncontrolled way, it can prevent proper heat distribution during processing, and even more so during cooling. Please just remember that, okay? Okay. Yes, exactly what I was thinking. Yes, especially since it just gets thicker as it cools. Precisely. Yes, that's why a cold gravy is practically a solid state. That's such a good thing to think of too. You have your gravy and it's nice and like gravy consistency, right? And then you put it in the fridge, you bring it back out, and it's like almost like gelatinous, like solid. That's why. And it's the same type of stuff happen when you know, have, it doesn't have to be even in the fridge. I shouldn't even say out of the fridge, like just cooled, room temp, basically, you know. But that is why in canning, it is very important to understand how the heat is moving through your jars. Yes, sir. Yes, it is. So there are some approved uses. Oh my gosh, can you guys hear my allergies? Goodness. There's some approved uses for like modified starches, like clear gel, which you see here. What do I want to say about it? Okay. No. Okay. So There are some uses for modified starches, like I was saying. Like here you have clear gel, right? It's a powder form essentially. You can get it in various different ways or whatever. Typically you'll see that in things like pie fillings, like exactly what it's showing you here. But the key word we have to remember again is tested. Tested uses only. Not improvised, not just like substituted randomly. You're only using clear gel when the recipe calls for clear gel, okay? Okay. Just to make sure we're on the same page. You can use your thickeners, your cornstarches, your flours, whatever. You can use your powdered pectins, blah, blah, blah. This only is used in certain recipes. Do not confuse this, okay? Do not confuse your clear gel with your sure gel. Okay. Just that little reminder there. So this section is really about understanding that thickening agents aren't just textured tools in canning, right? I think we've established that at this point through this segment. So they really can actually affect safety processes. This is where you run into some of those danger zones of like, oh my God, I blew up a whole can and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, let's break that down and look at why. Heat penetration is a huge issue. And if you research a lot of the reasons why, and it's actually pretty rare for things to blow up during canning. If you research a lot of the reasons why, when we're talking about recipes specifically, we're not talking about equipment, right? Because there's variations that you can do there, which we've talked about. But with recipes specifically, most of them come back to things like density and stuff like that, where you're kind of making it blow up. Essentially, you're creating a little mini bomb without even realizing it most times. So that's what that whole section was, really just understanding, stick to the rules, just follow your tested recipes, especially in the beginning, okay? And yeah, I think you'll get a full gelatinous is a whole other can of worms with literal gelatin. Your gravy doesn't turn gelatinous. Mine does without gelatin. It just becomes gelatin. Then you're talking collagen, yeah, and gelatinization and all that hoopla when it comes to breaking down bones in stock. Yep. Oh, that's a whole other like cool process that I'm excited to do more of. I typically go in on like a quarter cow with a friend, and I get like leftover bones and things like that, and I still have some just sitting in my freezer that I've been waiting to figure out what I'm gonna do with. Anyhow, so tested recipes, follow the rules, you got this, okay? Let's move on to herbs and spices and flavoring ingredients. This is one of the most flexible areas in canning, but it's also one of the most misunderstood. Herbs, spices, garlic, peppers, these are generally used for flavoring, and in most cases, they don't impact safety when they are used within tested limits. That was my version of capital letters, bold, blinking, okay? That doesn't mean that, oh, she just said I can do whatever I want with my herbs and spices and garlic and peppers. No, you cannot. Don't throw another dash of garlic in because you think it needs more. Don't remove a little bit of this herb or that because you think, don't do that, okay? Within tested limits, even flavoring ingredients can affect density. It can also affect pH in really small ways. And it can affect overall recipe balance if they're changed too aggressively. I am the queen of when I'm cooking, I'm going to throw in this, taste it, throw in this, taste it, throw in this, taste it, which is amazing for cooking and baking. I'm a great cook and I'm a great baker. Those are not, definitely not habits to keep when you are canning. Once you start altering quantities, at least significantly, right? Like we're talking more than a good chunk more than what the recipe says is safe. Once you start really altering those quantities significantly or changing core ingredients, you're no longer working within a tested system. And that's where things get unpredictable. Generally safe, but just remember, there are some things that you have to be careful with, and you always want to refer to the recipe itself. I can't stress that enough. Well, let's see what is John saying. Let's see, if I had that many beef bones in the time, I'd be using them for pho broth, right? Oh, I haven't had pho for a good couple months. It was when I was really sick last. It was probably like in February or March. I love pho. Would dry spices and herbs have an effect since they don't have as much acidity or moisture? Yes. Yep. They will have an effect. They can also not even just affect like the density, like probably you'd be less worried about density with drier spices. I mean, depending on how much you're putting in, right? You can always overdo anything. I'll just leave that there. And especially like salt is going to weigh a lot more than your other spices, right? And herbs and things like that. But we know about salt and not to use too much of that. But the dry spices, the worry there is more that you can change the pH balance and like the overall recipe balance if they're changed too aggressively. So I think that the rule of thumb is that flavor modifications are usually fine when you're working within a tested recipe and you're okay to maybe add like a pinch more here and there. But once you start altering quantities significantly, multiple pinches, multiple this, multiple that, oh, this needs all those things, or changing like core ingredients. So I don't want garlic anymore. I'm going to replace it with, I don't fucking know, onion or something like that. You're no longer working within that like tested system. So it's less about like acidity and moisture, more about that pH balance that we have to worry about. And that is where things can get really unpredictable if we are changing core ingredients or we are shifting and altering quantities more significantly. So that brings us to our next section. Well, now, would you look at the time? Tested boundaries matter, my friends. They do. Don't want to over modify anything, and just avoid a system imbalance. We're not talking, like I said, probably a pinch of garlic here isn't going to be a big issue, or a pinch less isn't going to be a big issue. But when you're going multiple pinches, that's the problem. And if you're doing it with every ingredient in the recipe, that might also be a problem. So using judgment, only maybe doing it to one or two of, the flavorings, the spices, whatever. But honestly, a lot of the recipes that I have seen, at least the more like modern ones, will tell you like, if you need to, you can add a pinch more of this or that or whatever. Like they'll typically give you some. If not, look again for another recipe. FBI, open up! That scared me so much. Hi, Clark. Oh my gosh, that scared me. How are you doing? Well, wake up, everybody. I wonder if that comes through on the YouTube video. You guys will have to tell me in the comments if that just jolted you out of the universe, out of your chair at the very least. That was amazing, Clark. I hope you're well. Yay, doing good. Yes, we are doing so good. So much work on this house. Holy moly. I was updating everybody about it at the beginning of the stream, but we're getting through to the very last chunks of things, and holy moly, living life. My goodness. We'll have to catch up with you guys soon. I hope you guys are enjoying your summer, and I'm assuming your yard is like finished or mostly finished by now. Hope you're enjoying that. Oh my gosh, so nice. Did that scare you? Yeah, that scared the shit out of me. I was deep in it, okay? I was thinking about over modifications, system imbalances, too much garlic powder. Oh my gosh. Okay. I know. Actually, do you think it looks like tarragon? Do you think this is tarragon? That's hilarious. I didn't even pay attention until you just said something. I started kind of peeking at it. I can't tell what I think that is. It kind of looks thymish. It looks, yeah, right? Summer yet. Our yard is not finished. Okay. Working towards it being finished by the end of summer or early fall. Oh my gosh, that's exciting. Holy cow. I can't wait to see the progress. I can't wait. I bet you guys can't wait to enjoy every minute of it. Lots of work though. Holy moly. Heck yeah. That's exciting. Good things in the works. Okay. The sprigs look longer than time. I thought would be a lot shorter. Maybe you're right. Maybe or are we just used to like, I don't know, not wild time? Yeah, no, you're right. That's true. Yeah, tarragon is similar to thyme and rosemary, but the longer, softer leaves. I think honestly, you might be right. I think you might be correct. Well, look at the tarragon. That doesn't work, okay? We're going to pretend it's time now. So, this is kind of silly how to read a recipe, right? We know we understand how to use a recipe, how to follow at least most basic steps, right? Most of us can probably do the gist of like prepping the ingredients or gathering the ingredients, prepping the ingredients, measuring them out, putting them all together, all of that kind of stuff. So now that we've covered most of the things that we can cover about canning before we're actually canning something, we're going to shift into this different gear of recipe reading. Because once you understand ingredients, you need to understand how to read a recipe correctly. And that is a canning recipe specifically. A tested canning recipe is not just going to be a list of ingredients and instructions. It's going to be a complete system. So you want to look for things like, first, obviously, what preservation method is being used, water bath or pressure canning. You want to check out which jar sizes are specified. And with the sizes, some recipes will specifically say, do not use wide mouth or do not use narrow, whatever. Just make sure you have the correct jar for the recipe. And if you don't, find a different recipe, okay? Make sure you know what ingredients are mandatory versus optional. Typically, the recipes will say these ones have to be in here for the sake of the binding or the density or whatever it's going to be. And then some will say like these are optional to add and you can add X, Y, and Z amount. They'll also tell you what acids are required and whether any altitude adjustments are necessary. So for people like me at 4,300 plus, I don't even know what I'm at, feet above sea level, something like that, 3,700 or something. I have to check every recipe to make sure that it is going to work for where I'm at or to make adjustments for where I'm at, because typically I have to adjust either the cook time or the temperature or both, things like that. So just make sure that you pay attention to that. And then you also want to understand how processing time is determined, because it will tell you. So in canning, the instructions are just as important as the ingredients, as we know. I think we've hit a lot on that. I don't want to over discuss it, but I think it's very important just to understand we have our instructions for safety purposes. We know our ingredients are typically they're mostly for structure, a little bit of taste, but mostly structure. We need to make sure that we are equally looking at the instructions and the ingredients and making sure that we're not adding or removing crucial things. Okay. All right. Let's see. Wait. It could be a different variety of time. Wait, no, I don't. Do you think? I overthink stuff like that too. I guess it could be like a wild mountain time. I don't know. Oh my gosh. No, today is a learning segment. All right. So when you're trying a new recipe and the blogger includes jump to recipe button on the page, that gives me this feeling every time, I must say. On most canning recipes, I haven't found a lot of that though, unfortunately. So that's okay. One of the most common mistakes, we talk about a lot of beginners' mistakes. I'm going to turn this off. Ooh, sorry if that was loud for you guys. Had to adjust my heater because it was very hot. So one of the most common mistakes that beginners make has absolutely nothing to do with skill level. It's literally just choosing the wrong first project. A lot of people start way too complex. They jump straight into like pressure canning or multi-ingredient recipes or large batch production before they've ever even like learned how their equipment really behaves and how their workflow cooperates and all of those types of things. And technically, yes, you can do that. You can jump into something crazy if you would like. Absolutely. But the better question is whether you should. Because the goal of a first project, especially in canning, is not going to be efficiency. As we know by now at this point in our Canning 101 series, it really is just confidence. We want to build confidence. We want to know that we can easily repeat what we've just done. We want to know that our workflow is also repeatable and easy to work through. All of those types of good things. So just slow down a bit. Remember that we're trying to build confidence here. That's the biggest part. Now, do you like my makeup meme here? Not sure if canning is easy or if I know nothing. You okay with learning? Heck yeah. We like learning. I've got one dog over here just whining at me like, why are you not paying attention to me? Okay. So, don't overcomplicate it. Don't have all these crazy variables. You're going to be okay, all right? So, because the goal of a first project is not efficiency, right? Simpler projects like jams, jellies, and like basic pickles are often recommended as a first project. They will let you focus on your process, your workflow, your repeatable steps without overwhelming like all of these variables on top of it. More advanced projects like soups or mixed vegetables introduce more safety considerations. As we know, we've talked about it. They introduce more variables, and then they just obviously create a little bit more opportunities for error. That's not to say, again, that you can't choose a soup or like mixed veggies as your first project. You do whatever your heart desires, but building up those skills is something that is worth doing. Building up to those types of projects is typically something better for a novice or a beginner canner. So that's why I have, keep it simple, stupid, kiss. Just start simple, build your confidence, control your variables, and just keep it simple. Try to keep it simple in the beginning if you can. Don't be too wild. Don't be, I'm the type that I took these entrepreneurial courses in college, and my professor told me that I was the type who would eat the entire elephant or like the tribe of elephants instead of parting out the elephant and doing it side by side or piece by piece. And that's why I would feel so overwhelmed, because I would try to like take down or eat, or she would use different analogies. Sometimes it was hunt or eat or whatever it was. But like this whole elephant basically. So that's me. I would be the one that's like, I want to start out with a soup for my first one. So I'm also going to resist that urge, and I'm going to start simple and work my way up as well. Now, let's really start putting her face. Oh my gosh. Now let's start really putting everything together. That's me when I get fresh jam. Oh my. Before you ever turn on, your stove, your, I don't know, equipment, whatever you want to call it, a successful, do you like that? She's excited about her jams, jellies, and pickles. So before we ever turn on anything, a successful canning day just starts with planning. And I feel like that is kind of the key to, like, I don't know, most success in life, right? Is planning before we get in there. Planning our, oh my gosh, I cannot speak. Planning our flow of things, planning, what we need, getting all the ingredients measured out, prepped, and thought through. Make sure we have everything. If we have to run to the store really quick, do it then, versus when you're like, oh shit, I'm putting everything together and now I don't have it. Stage your equipment, all those types of things, right? So she does look like me a goth. Oh, I can't. Here's one more for anybody who missed it. Her face. Look how happy she is. Oh my goodness, excuse me. I am like dying over here with these allergies. So you really want to think through the entire process ahead of time, like I was saying. What recipe are you using? What ingredients do you need prepped and ready? What equipment needs to be staged? How many jars are you preparing? Do you have all of the lids and bands for those jars? Where are they? Are they next to the jars? Are they somewhere accessible? And where are you going to place your hot jars when they come out of processing? Do you have a spot that's not near a fan, not near a bunch of airflow, is just kind of in its own designated area away from the sun? And what does your timeline actually look like from start to finish? Is this going to be a project where you think it might only take 20 minutes, but really it's going to take an hour? You need to actually go through each step and think about how long, see how long things need to cook for. The job of the recipe giver, the tested recipe giver, source, whatever you want to call it, is to do some of that work, right? And tell you how long things should take. But they don't know your specific kitchen setups. Like my oven, for example, takes longer than God's green earth to heat up. Like it is so long. And probably the recipe doesn't account for something like that. So I'm going to know that I need to preheat my stuff well before I'm even starting on a certain point of the recipe. Things like that. Just make sure that you're thinking through your timeline. You're thinking through your actual lived in area that you are cooking in, whether that's your an actual kitchen, a kind of a makeshift kitchen, whatever your situation is. We just want to reduce as much stress as we can by planning ahead. Once you're in the process, things move quickly. Chaos happens exponentially. We're not usually prepared for the things that happen. We'll bump into some things. The next things we know, like our great workflow is just a mess. Just remember, you're already going to have issues. So let's set ourselves up for success by planning ahead, as much as we can. So the smoother your setup is, and also I like this little guy. I feel like he is like the representation of my life most times. And I'm just there conducting. Anyways, the smoother your setup is, the safer and less stressful the entire experience is going to become for you. So ensuring you have your 4 main zones in your kitchen or kitchen-like area, whatever it is crucial to your success. We need a very clear separated prep zone and filling zone. They can be next to each other. They can be on the same chunk of counter or table or whatever. Just make sure that they have a clear separated area. You don't want them like getting combined and mixed in. You could even put like something, I don't know, a spoon or something in the middle of them to like mark your area, like a big wooden spoon. So keep your areas separated, right? You have your prep zone, you have your filling zone. Then your heat zone needs to be away from your prep zone, but still close enough to make sense and access the items and tools that your recipe requires, right? You don't want to be running as much as you can. I get that there are constraints, on how kitchens are designed, all of that. Totally get that. But just understand that like you don't want to be running halfway across the kitchen or all the way across the kitchen to your prep zone to your heat back and forth, because that would obviously cause some issues and there's a lot that could go wrong in between those steps. So your heat zone needs to be away from your prep zone, but still close enough to make sense. And as we already know from parts 1 through 5, the cooling zone, your 4th zone, needs to be a designated, undisturbed area away from sun and cold blowing air. Now, we're going to do something a little different and take this into the real world, at least virtually for now. Don't worry, we'll have plenty of more time to do this in person. Although I might have a different kitchen by that time, depending on how this series goes. So this is where things get really practical. Instead of me or like a video or a site or whatever, just telling you how a kitchen should be set up for canning, I want us to actually try and build one together, like in real time. So I am going to show you my actual kitchen layout here. This is what is on the what do you call it, screen. At least this was an early picture of my kitchen. Now more work has been done to it, so it looks different, a little bit different. But anyways, that's my kitchen for all intents and purposes. That's my layout. And I want you to take a few minutes to just kind of look it over and observe what you're seeing. Before I say anything about what I think works best. I just want to hear what you think, because I think a big part of learning workflow is training yourself to see movement and function in a space, not just like objects, right? So I think this image of the kitchen is good because it shows it's lived in. It has regular stuff on it. Would I like to have more counter space? Hell yes, I would, but I don't have very many cabinets, so my stuff's kind of out everywhere. But that's not an issue, right? You're seeing what I'm working with, which is pretty little counter space. Let me cough really quick, not in your ears. At least hopefully that didn't just come through the mic. I don't know. So we're just kind of analyzing things, just kind of looking at stuff. Obviously, I can take one of the zones out of the picture for us. Here's the heat zone, right? That's the no-brainer. So where do you guys think let's start with the prep zone. Where do you think I should be prepping my foods, my ingredients, my whatever else I need to have in, my spices, herbs, all of that kind of stuff? Where would be like the most logical zone to set up for prep? What do you guys think? Oh my God, it's so true though. Oh, my dog's heard something. Counter space really is like closets and garages. You can never have enough space. No, it is so true. And it's funny how like quickly it fills up too. Like, oh my gosh. Oh yeah, probably left of sink for like prep. I might even, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to cough again. I might even have to like share this kitchen, my God, this counter, because it's bigger over here, because there's not much room right here. Like, okay, so I think that's probably a safe bet. We'd probably have our prep like over here. So we'd want our, excuse me, oh my goodness. Whew. I gotta get some food. That's why I'm so tiny. That too. Tea. Okay, anyways, focus. So we have our prep zone, which would probably be like somewhere maybe over here-ish or something like this, somewhere in here. And then we're gonna have our filling zone, which I don't know if I'd want to put it this close because that's such a small amount of counter, but I could move these things out of the way. And like, obviously I'd move this, I would move this out of here. So that would give me more like just kind of open room on the counters. That would help. Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah. If you need to transport, doing so over the sink can reduce mess if you drop something. Absolutely. That's a better way to do that and make sure my sink is clean and free of dishes. I can't stop coughing suddenly. Hi, Delon. What's up? How's it going? Okay, I like it. And then we have our heat. And then one thing that I should mention is because of the way my kitchen is, I can either, like, you can't see it. I couldn't like fit everything in the picture and have it still look the way that it is. Like with showing you the actual counter space here. There is a small counter space over here to the side of this white door, and it's about this same amount right here. So I can technically put stuff there if I have some way to like cover them, because this is still out in the open in my kitchen, which is exposed to like light and things like that. So this is something that I'm still kind of questioning, and I want to do a little bit of research on myself. I don't know if I would want to just straight up, this is why I didn't necessarily include it at this point, like the option for it, because I could either put it in my pantries to do its to do its processing, or let it process here for a bit on the counter, and then once it's cooler to the touch, maybe move it. But it has to be undisturbed for 12 to 24 hours depending on the recipe, right? So I don't know. I'm still kind of questioning this, and I'm not exactly sure if I would want to like have them in a completely separate area or just put them in the pantry. Putting them in the pantry, I would worry that all of that heat would affect other things in there, rightfully so. So I could either put it covered over here on this counter, which may be the more practical option. Or I also have right behind this setup, like on this other side of the picture that you guys can't see, is a big table, like a big kitchen table. So I can also use that and either cover it or something along those lines. But I don't want sunlight getting to it, so I'm just trying to figure out like the best way. Or last option, which could be an option, I have like a foldable table that I could set up in the room behind this kitchen, which would be a little more out of the sunlight. I don't know. Your girl is still questioning things. But for the purposes of our activity, I think it's safe to say when you're looking at it, like this would be a good prep zone. Probably your fill zone would be right around here as well. This would probably be like your, maybe where you move everything to leave it, and then you start putting it in your cans here, you know? Or I'm sorry, start putting your cans in your cooker there, whether it's your water bath or your pressure. And then you would have your cooling area kind of out of sight, because it would be either covered over here or like on a table over here covered. So I think that's like I think that's the way. I know I need to get some food in my system. I will be here in a little bit though. Don't you worry. So, when you kind of think about this for your own kitchen, excuse me, I want you to just kind of think, where does prep naturally happen? Where would you naturally wash your fruit, cut ingredients, and like get everything ready for your meal? If you're here live, you've already seen like John put his opinion in there, and we're kind of working through it. So if you're watching this on the replay, just pause for a second and think it through before continuing. We want to know, where's our water access? If you're not in a traditional kitchen setup, maybe you want to move things around a bit so that you have water access semi-close to your prep area and your heating element. Where does your heating and cooking belong? Do you have a separate burner system that you have to put on a table in another area? Can you move that table over, or does it cause a constricted workflow? Where does your cooling naturally fit, which is what I'm kind of, worried about. So, like John pointed out, the counter space near the sink really makes, I think, the most sense for that prep work. There is definitely a potential for doing things shared between these. And again, if you don't have this layout, maybe your sink is over here or over here or over here or something. Think about where you have the most counter space, excuse me, and where you could feasibly do most of your prep, because let's be honest, your prep is where you need the most work and you need to have the most workflow in that area. So, second question, if you don't have a oven, if you have a burner that you have to bring in, where does that naturally go? Think about, where the stove, the boiling water bath canner, or like any active cooking is going to happen. Where does that naturally sit in this kitchen layout on screen, for example, or in your kitchen layout, or whatever situation you have? Again, don't overthink it. Just go with what feels logical based on movement and safety and how you could best move around the room and not have to backtrack. Remember, that's one of the biggest, I guess, things that we harped on in kind of the beginning, is making sure that you're not backtracking as much as possible. Obviously, if your kitchen isn't set up in a way that you can't do things in like one kind of continuous line, that's okay. Figure things out that work the best for you, but just think about it before you get to it. Think about it all, lay it all out, make sure it makes sense in your head, that you have kind of a practical flow for things, and you're not having to go back when you're using the heat to now in your prep area, or vice versa, or things like that. So just think about movement, think about safety. Now, third question, which is kind of what I was wrestling with, is where would your finished jars go to cool safely? This is the one that most people don't think about, and we have talked about it a good bit before in parts 1 through 5, but it's really helpful to remember your project is not done until your project is done. There are certain recipes, and I didn't know this about canning. I genuinely didn't. I just didn't know. Where if you move them too much during the first 6 hours or whatever of processing, you can actually affect the density in whatever way it's trying to set up with the different thickeners. You can affect things, and it won't process the same way that it's supposed to. So it needs to be stable, it needs to be undisturbed, and it needs to be out of your active workflow path, preferably away from airflow. Don't have a fan on it. Don't put it next to your air conditioning vent, and please don't put it next to a window. Cover it, put something in front of it if you have a window, kind of like I was talking about. Just remember, cooling isn't just put them anywhere on the counter, okay? And I see a lot of people do this. I'm not gonna lie, most of the people that I watch their canning stuff and look to for recipes and things like that, they will do that. They'll just leave it there on their counter, and I can only imagine the issues that probably come from that, or would come from that, or whatever. So just remember to think about where in your kitchen would you place your finished jars so they're safe, but not in the way. Like I said, there is a kitchen table directly across from or behind this area that you're seeing on screen of my kitchen, where I would likely cool my jars before storing, as long as I have low sunlight and the blinds are closed and all of that. But that's, I think, for bigger batches. For smaller, I think it would be smarter to have it on this counter over here on the side that is not pictured. So just keep things in mind. Not every kitchen is traditional. Not everybody even has a kitchen. So just work with what you have and try and think of the best workflow for your situation to not backtrack as much as possible, and to make it repeatable so that you could continue doing it and continue having the same success over and over again. All right. So I think it's pretty, even without me having to call anything out, it's pretty obvious, in my little layout here where our mapping, obviously we can see where water access is. It's right here at the sink. Obviously we can see where our heat is concentrated. It's right here. We can see our open counters and stuff like that. We can kind of get an idea of low traffic areas because I've told you where they are for cooling, but you can't really see it here, and it's not connected. I have more of an ideal setup, I guess, for a kitchen, because I have a good counter space and I have a sink in an oven there. I have my heat source all together right here. But I may find that my stove is incompatible with the pressure canner or the water bath canner, and I may have to get a separate burner and try and do this for myself. And in that case, I would either put it here if that's okay, if it's allowed, or I would put it over here or something. So just remember, every different situation in reality is going to look different from the next. There's not ever going to be one perfect setup or one situation. We're just working on developing our canning workflow. So we're not memorizing the zones. We're just seeing movement and how it naturally organizes itself in a space. So what we have just done, whether we realize it or not, is we started building a workflow map. So we're just going to formalize it into standard canning zones, everything that we've talked about, but just kind of put it all together at once, okay? So we're going to have our prep zone, which is where our ingredients are washed and cut and staged, all going to be kind of right here for me in this section. We have a heat zone. Obviously, for me, it may be here or somewhere around here. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm going to try and keep it in this general area depending on what my stove allows. Make sure you check your stove if you have a flat top stove especially, but I would check any of them, all of them, to make sure that your specific model is okay with canning, because that is how we run into safety issues or things blowing up. Just remember that is important. Then you will have your filling zone, which will probably, for me, will be combined in here. Depending on how big the project is or what I need, I'll probably have the filling zone here or here. That also depends on where the burner is going to be, if I have to use a separate one. So I'm just thinking through these things. I want to know with that filling zone, that's where jars are actually packed, you know. Then we're going to have our cooling zone after all of that, where the jars are finished, they can rest undisturbed. And we also want to know where like just our kind of basic staging zone is, where like our tools and lids and funnels and everything are. That needs to be within reach as well. So like for me, I could maybe do some of that back here on this table. I could do a little bit over here on this countertop, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm not using this for cooling. But again, you want to leave your cooling area free of clutter and debris and all of that. So I would have to make one choice or the other. But the important part is just kitchens don't naturally come with these labels, right? We have to assign them based on movement and logic and what actually works and what doesn't. Because like I said, I could throw in a whole wrench where my stove won't even work for it, and then I'm kind of SOL. Like that's just the situation, right? So depending on your kitchen, the zones might overlap just like mine. They might need to be spread out just like mine, and they might need to be having some supplemental furniture. Like if you have a table that you can add, like a, you know, a foldable table or something. So just remember that, think ahead about it, all that good stuff. So now I'm going to show you my actual kitchen layout again with the most like optimized setup or layout. This is what has been suggested to me by a couple of professional canners. So yeah, you're my brain just stopped working for a second. Sorry. We're not guessing or theorizing or doing anything like that, right? We're just testing our workflow knowledge against an actual real space, which is mine. So here we go. They brought in this little thing. They're like, here, put your table in there. This is obviously was off because we couldn't see it. But anyways, okay. So we have our prep zone, which would be this whole thing. And probably depending on how big the project is, I could remove this as well. And so I could just use this entire thing. Filling zone would be here. This is what they said would be the most like workflow. What did they say? I don't know. The best workflow considering what they see in their experience. So obviously you'd have your filling zone somewhere in here, unless your project's too big, and then you could have it be over here. And then you would have your heat stove canner, depending on the stove and all of that. They seem to think my stove's fine. I don't know. I need to check it. And then you have, when you're done with some of the processing, things can come onto this counter as well, which I can also move these things if I need to, if I need more space. And then you have your cooling zone, which would either be here behind this whole setup or here on the side off to where the picture doesn't show. So I think John hit the nail on the head. Like that was perfect with our prep and kind of filling zone and stuff. We obviously know our heat zone, and then we've got our cooling. So just kind of think about these types of things for your own situation. Like I was saying, if you're making a completely makeshift kitchen on your own, everything's kind of from scratch, then just try and keep your workflow as close to this as possible, as close to like a flow, having your prep zone in one, and then your filling zone, then your heat, and then your cooling. And obviously in the beginning of there, you want your staging. That's kind of involved in your prep zone. So you have your prep zone, next filling, next heat, and then cooling zone. If you are constricted because of different areas, different layouts, all of that type of stuff, totally understandable. Just try and make your movement reduced. That's all you want. Less backtracking, less safety issues, more controlled process, all that good stuff. Now let's apply everything that we worked. Why do I have chaos there again? I don't remember. Now let's apply everything we talked about so far. Okay. So let's choose, we're going to basically just choose like a very simple, very classic beginner project. Just a little workflow demonstration. So, if anybody understands what this means on the screen, I'll give them a cookie. I thought it was hilarious. Okay, so let's choose, like I said, a very simple, very classic beginner project. We're going to talk about strawberry jam, okay? This is a great example because it sits right in that beginner-friendly but still structured kind of category. It uses both acid balance and pectin structure, which we have just learned a lot about, but it doesn't involve pressure canning or like multiple safety layers. It definitely has some safety layers, but there's not so much of it. So we are going to walk through it the same way that you would actually walk through or think through it, I guess, rather, before you ever turn on a stove, okay? So, first question. What ingredients are required? And which ones are structural versus flavor? So, in a basic tested strawberry jam recipe, your core ingredients are typically going to be strawberries, sugar, pectin, at least in most standard recipes, and then sometimes lemon juice or citric acid. Now, here's how we break that down in a real decision-making way. Strawberries are obviously your like base fruit, right? That's your flavor, that's the bulk of your recipe. But sugar is not going to just act as flavor here, as we just talked about a little bit earlier in this segment. Sugar is doing multiple things at once. It's contributing sweetness, yes, of course, but more importantly, it's interacting with pectin to help the jam actually set properly. So it helps with preservation by binding water essentially in the mixture, and then you've got the pectin actually helping it set. So sugar is what we would call a structural ingredient in this recipe, not just a flavoring ingredient. Then you have the pectin. Pectin is not optional in most, I should say most, standard jam formulations. I have seen a couple where it's not, and I'm like, what? Anyways, it's basically what allows the mixture to turn from like a fruit syrup or like a fruit sauce into an actual gelled spread. Without it, you don't get jam, you get something closer to like a strawberry sauce, which is also very valid and delicious in its own way, but not jam. And then you have the lemon juice or like the citric acid, depending on what is included. It's there literally to just help support acidity balance and ensure that proper gel formation, depending on what pectin that you're using. So already, look at this cute little recipe card. Already you can see how this stops being just like a recipe and becomes more of a system of roles. Fruit is your base, sugar is your structure, pectin is your gel system, and then acid supports literally all of that and brings it back all together. In this case, this one uses lemon juice. So if we were looking at this recipe, we would say, okay, we need 8 pounds of ripe strawberries, we need 7 cups of sugar, we need 1 cup of lemon juice, we need 12.5 pint mason jars, and 1 32-ounce mason jar, okay? Boil clean jars in water for 10 minutes, fill and wipe clean with vinegar-soaked towel, seal and boil in water for 10 minutes, make sure they're properly sealed. So this one cuts through a lot of things, right? It doesn't tell us exactly how to prep them. It doesn't tell us what to do with all of that. This is not a complete recipe. And you want to make sure when you're looking at things like this, you're like, wait, how am I supposed to process the strawberries? Like, am I putting them in chunks? So I have to put them down pretty, like, smash them down? What's the system here? So this is not a complete recipe. And this is one that you will fall victim to on most social medias, most like Instagram shorts, YouTube, or what are they? Instagram shorts, YouTube reels. Did I say those wrong? Instagram reels, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. All those little things where you have like the quick short form content. They're always going to be oftentimes stuff like this. I guarantee there's probably more to this recipe if you go to it. But this recipe as is, you don't have enough information for it. So you want to make sure that you are being very careful. I threw that in as a little like learning thing because I was looking at it and I'm like, oh, I want to do this one. And then I realized there was literally no other information. Like this was the recipe, not a recipe. And this is not tested, guys. This is not from an official source. Don't make this mistake. So, let's talk about, let's see. We know that it's a system. Let's talk about the role that sugar plays here. Sugar is doing more than most people realize. In strawberry jam, first, obviously, there's sweetness there, but it's definitely part of the gel structure, like I was telling you guys. So just to kind of dive into that a little bit more, sugar literally helps pectin molecules bind and form a stable set. If you reduce sugar if you change to a low sugar, whatever substitute, without adjusting the whole recipe system, for example, switching to low sugar pectin or something like that, the jam may not set correctly. So this is where beginners often get surprised. A lot of people assume sugar is flexible and it's just kind of a taste thing and you can use less. But in jam making, it's typically structural, not optional. That's why low sugar jam recipes are completely different formulations, not just modified versions of like standard recipes. So let's talk about the role pectin is playing in this particular recipe, and in most, honestly, too, but like in this jam. Pectin is essentially like the gelling framework of your, I don't know, jam house, if you will. Think of it like the architecture of the jam. It's what turns your like heated fruit mixture basically into something that thickens and actually holds a shape once it's cooled. And the important detail is that pectin systems are designed very specifically. Powdered pectin behaves completely differently than liquid pectin. They are added at different times, they require completely different boiling conditions, and they set at different stages of the cooking process. So if you swap them or change timing or, I don't know, decide not to include them or something, you're not making just like a small little tweak to the recipe. You're changing how the entire structure forms. So that's why pectin is one of the most precision sensitive ingredients in canning. A lot of people go, ooh, pectin, like in the beginning at least, because it's kind of a bigger deal. But it's really not that hard as long as you follow the directions. People have a lot of mess ups because of pectin, and it's typically because they are adding too much, they're adding too little, they're making weird substitutions for it. I have very rarely, I won't say never, I've very, very rarely ever seen a tested recipe like video come out with a bad result when I don't know, the recipe is followed, when the instructions are followed, especially the pectins. So don't let pectin scare you. It's very useful and very easy. Just follow the directions. So even before we like talk, really much about equipment or anything like that, we just need to remember, if you swap ingredients in general, but especially your pectins and things like that, for example, in this jam recipe, you are completely changing the entire structure. You're changing how everything forms and sets or doesn't, and ultimately you're changing the final recipe. So you will probably not end up with what you're supposed to end up with. So how's about systems? Just remember, just follow your systems. All right. What equipment do we need staged before we even start? We were talking about having like a staging area of things. So before we even start to talk about cooking or canning, whatever, a strawberry jam setup would usually include a few very basic things. You would have a large pot for cooking the fruit mixture, which is not actually shown here. This is just the canning pot. But you'd have your large pot for cooking, and that would be on the side. You'd have your water bath canner or large stock pot for processing the jars, which you have right here with the different trays and stuff. You would have your jar lifter right here. You would have your tunnel. Yeah, you have that too. Maybe just a funnel though, probably. You would have measuring tools and things like that if you need them. Not shown here, obviously, but you would have various other whatevers. They have chopsticks here because some people like to use those to help with the headspace and like pushing things down on the side. That's basically number 7 and number 4 can kind of be interchangeably used. So clean jars, clean lids, clean bands, all that good stuff. And then obviously a heat safe area for cooling your finished jars. You just want everything ready, have it all staged. But more importantly than just listing tools, the real point here is staging. Everything needs to be in reach and in a place that makes sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to me or anyone else in your kitchen or whatever. It needs to make sense to you and your workflow and making sure that you're staying optimized. So Everything needs to be in reach before you start cooking, because once your jam reaches the boiling stage, timing becomes really tight. That's for this particular recipe, right? But in other things, who knows? I mean, really, jam is so simple that it's not going to require too much. But as you start getting a lot more complex recipes in the mix, staging becomes even more important. And I think that's the case with even any type of recipe, cooking, baking, whatever. Staging is so helpful. Stage out things, measure out as much as you can, so you're not having to stop mid-process to search for a funnel, or, you know, to search for your jar headspace tool, or your debubbler, or whatever your situation is. Oh crap, I forgot my rack. Oh no, this part isn't here. Have all your stuff ready. This is where setup becomes part of safety and success, not just convenience. Okay. Is that what that sign just reminded you of? Clean your dishes, kids. Oh, I read that wrong, actually. That reminded me of those signs that they have in break rooms where they're like, "We're not your mom," or something. Clean your dishes or whatever. Have you ever seen those ones? Like, your mom doesn't work here. Make sure you clean your dishes. I don't know why that just reminded me of it. That made me laugh. But yeah, clean your dishes. Sheesh. All right. So let's actually walk through it like it would happen in real time. I know this looks like a lot of information, but don't worry. It is, but it makes sense. This obviously wouldn't be the whole, like, you're not going to be blanching strawberries and things like that. So this is not just for the jam recipe. This is for all canning sort of in general. So let's walk through it like it would happen in real time. So first, you're washing and you're preparing strawberries for your jam, for example. You are removing stems. You are cutting the strawberries if needed, depending on what the recipe says, because a tested recipe will tell you. Remember, not like, oh no, not like what mine did. I think I have like a hiccup burp. I don't know what's happening. Oh no, I think I have hiccups. Okay. And then you combine your, your fruit with pectin. Oh no. Where did these hiccups just come from? What's happening? Okay, so you combine the fruit with pectin according to the recipe order. And this matters because some pectin systems require fruit and pectin to boil before sugar is added, while others will actually reverse the order. Did you hear that? Some pectin systems require fruit and pectin to boil before sugar is added. Others will require it in the reverse order. So just remember that. Read your recipe, read your pectin. Your pectin's gonna I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. How long have you been saving that up, John? Yeah, that's the face alone. I'm really curious to know if these come through on the YouTube VOD. That's friggin' hilarious. Because it's only a Twitch notification. I don't know if it goes through the whole thing. That's hilarious and awful. What good timing. I feel good. That, I don't think I have hiccups anymore, actually. Now that you just said that, they say scaring can help hiccups. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. I think you're right. I think they went away. So really, you were helping me. Okay, I see you. I see this. Thanks in that case. All right, so you've washed your fruit. You've prepped it all. You've done whatever is required. You combine your fruit with your pectin according to whatever order they've told us to do. And then you bring your mixture to a full rolling boil. All right, everything's boiling. Everything's going. Then you add your sugar, depending on how, or it's already incorporated, depending on the recipe system. And the mixture is brought back to a boil for a specific timed period. Once that gel stage is reached, you remove it from heat immediately, and then you fill all of your sterilized jars, leaving your proper headspace. You remove air bubbles, you wipe rims, you apply all of your lids and bands. So that's kind of giving you this in a nutshell. You're peeling, you're washing, you're sorting, whatever you need to do there, deciding if you want things or not, deciding what you're using. You are cutting, blanching if needed. You are filling things. You're exhausting if needed, or debubbling, whatever your situation is. You're sealing, you're processing, then you're cooling, you're testing for things, making sure that the lid is sealed properly, all of that good stuff. Then you're labeling, you're storing, you're packaging. That's our whole, thing. Maybe not packaging. We're probably just storing for the most part, but some of us are. So you've filled your sterilized jars, you've removed your air bubbles, you're doing all that good stuff. Then you process the jars in a boiling water bath for the required time. After that, you remove them and place them on your towel or cooling rack. And this is the part a lot of people underestimate. And something that I've talked about. You are not supposed to touch them during the cooling phase. As they cool, you'll hear the sealing pops of the literal seals on the jars. And that is the vacuum forming. It's really important to let them rest undisturbed for that 12 to 24 hours, depending on what your recipe says, before you're checking seals, before you're moving, bumping, blah, blah, blah. You really want things to be as calm as possible around that. So, big kind of takeaway, closing thought for this section. When you step back and look at this entire process, what you realize is that strawberry jam is not just a recipe. And all of the other processes and recipes that we're going to look at are not just recipes. They are sequences of controlled chemical and physical stages. Each ingredient has a role, each step has a timing purpose, and each decision truly affects the final structure of the product. So you may make the same strawberry jam every freaking year and it tastes the same all the time, but one year you, move them around a bunch during cooling because excuse me, you're hosting people and you have to kind of move furniture around and you don't even think about it. But then when you go to open it, months down the line, it's not sealed properly or it's tasting weird or whatever the situation is. And you may not even remember that you moved it around during cooling. That's why it's so important. Just do your best to not touch things. That should be the undisturbed, just completely do not touch, do not pass go type of area for those things to just cool and chill. So now I want you to really think back about this. If you are live here, feel free to answer in chat, or if you're watching it on replay, just think about it on your own and maybe drop a comment if you feel like it, so we can all chat and learn together. Let me ask you this. If you were going to start your first project, what would it be? What ingredient or additive surprised you the most tonight that you learned about? Was it crazy to learn about citric acid? Was it kind of interesting to learn that you can't use fresh lemons and you have to use bottled? And what part of planning still feels unclear or intimidating to you? I'll kind of answer some of these for myself because I definitely still have lots of questions and thoughts about things. For me, for starting our first project, we're going to actually vote on it. We'll put it in on Patreon and you guys can weigh in on it and decide what you think it should be. We're going to stick with easy things, jams, jellies, pickles, stuff like that. For me personally, I love strawberry jam or raspberry jam, things like that. So that would probably be something that if I were just picking fully on my own, that's what I would want to do. And I think that's a really easy first project. I think another first project that's really easy, honestly, is processing beans. If you want to do canned beans, that's also somewhat simple. But really, if you can try and stick with jams, jellies, pickles, things like that for the first project, I think that'll help you gain a lot of confidence and understand the steps. So I think that's kind of what I want to follow. And then the ingredient or additive that surprised me was honestly lemon juice. I had no idea. Well, actually there was two. I had no idea that you couldn't use fresh lemon juice if it was the same amount. That didn't make sense to me, but it does make more sense now that I've learned all about it, because you're using something bottled and concentrated versus something concentrated in a fruit, which is very different. So that part was kind of crazy to me. And then also, I didn't know in the beginning of all of this that you couldn't just use a low sugar alternative to a sugar. So that really surprised me. And then the brown sugar and stuff like that. I didn't think that you could use any other type of sugar in your canning besides granulated white sugar. So that was very interesting to me. Those things kind of surprised me. The thing that and then I guess also some of the pectin stuff was a little bit, I didn't know the difference. I honestly just have only ever used powder pectin. So I didn't even know about like other options. And then the part of like planning that still feels unclear or intimidating for me partly is where I'm going to do like the cooking. I don't know for sure if my stove allows it, so I need to look into that. And then I don't know about my cooling zone. I'm a little bit unclear on that, if I need to like put it somewhere else completely where there's no windows, or like I don't know. I still feel like I need to look into more of that at least a little bit, because I want to make sure that it is out of the light and out of the like main movement areas, but like still safe and still somewhat close to the kitchen. Because you can't like, you don't want to transport it super far either. I don't know. Pectin stuff was helpful. It's probably the thing we've discussed that I have the least amount of experience with. Yeah, same, honestly. I've only ever used pectin a few times, and it was a long time ago. And I don't remember much about using it. I'm a little bit nervous still about pectin, because I know that if you mess it up, you can truly mess up the entire recipe. But I feel like as long as I follow the recipes, follow the directions, I should be okay. Hopefully. But I don't know. Sugar stuff makes sense to me, because it's the same way with ice cream. Okay, wait. I was researching stuff when I got an ice cream maker, because my mom needs to watch sugar intake. Good for you. That's awesome. There are different sugar alternatives that are better than others. That's really cool. I would always just think like regular ass sugar for ice cream would be like rock salt ice cream, or rock salt and like regular sugar. I wouldn't even think of. What have you like trialed? Has anything not worked before? That's really cool. I'm also very curious about like, can I use coconut sugars? But I don't think I can. I don't think you can use things that are, unless the recipe specifically is like tested and formulated for that. I don't know. I want to make homemade ice cream. I want to get the Ninja Creamy. Yeah, that one. And make different like ice creams and stuff. Those are more like yogurt based, I think. No, I mean you can do whatever you want, but I used to have like an old school ice cream maker. I think it broke many years ago. I forget what it's called, but there's a sugar substitute that works chemically very close to the real thing. Huh. That's really cool. So you can give her some yummy ice cream. That's awesome. All right, well, I still definitely have a few things that I have to research on my own. I don't know about you guys and your kitchen setups. You may have to do the same, but just things to kind of think about. And I think there will be even more questions and stuff like that as we continue. In part 7, I'm still debating on what to do, just FYI, heads up for everybody, because I still don't have all the tools, and I also have half of my stuff in packing right now. So just bear with me on figuring out exactly how we're going to do this. I don't know if the next stream will be a hands-on me doing an actual like recipe, or if it's going to be maybe we've picked the recipe and we're working through all of the details of it and planning everything, prepping it all, and then we'll do it the next one. I don't know. Stay tuned. Stay tuned on the Patreon and the Discord. So, if we zoom out from everything that we covered tonight, parts 1 through 5 gave us the foundation of canning, right? We learned the science behind preservation. We learned how equipment works, how workflow functions, and what like beginner mistakes to avoid. And tonight in part 6, we started connecting all of that to like real world decision making. We talked about why ingredients matter beyond flavor. We looked at acids, salts, sugars, pectins, thickeners, and common additives, and learned how to start thinking about them in terms of the role that they play in a recipe rather than just like what they contribute to taste, or we don't know. We discussed how to evaluate tested recipes, how to choose appropriate beginner projects, how to plan a canning day before it ever starts. We even took everything that we've learned and applied it to a real kitchen layout and a real world project example, so you can see, or at least start seeing, how all of the individual pieces fit together into one complete process. And honestly, that's a really huge step for this learning segment so far, because at this point we are no longer just collecting information about canning, or safety details or ingredients or whatever. We're really learning to think through things like someone who actually cans now. We're learning to evaluate ingredients, understand recipes, organize our workspace, identify potential problems before they happen, and ultimately we're making informed decisions instead of guessing, which I think is huge, and that also just gives us more confidence to do even more canning, which is awesome. So that's exactly the skill set that we're trying to build throughout this whole series. This canning series and any of our future learning series that we do, that's really just what we're trying to do in this whole community. So that means I can officially now say we are finally at the point where we're not just learning about canning anymore. Isn't that so cool? We are officially getting ready to do it, and that's super exciting. If you missed any of the, excuse me, my whole screen just scrolled over here. If you missed any of the previous segments and want to go back and fill in gaps, or if you maybe have seen them all but it's been a bit, so you just want to kind of go back and watch through them again, all of the replays are always available on YouTube. I highly encourage you to go back and watch the earlier parts if you're joining us midway through the series. Each lesson really builds on the one before it, and having the full foundation will make the later sections in this series much easier to understand. If you are watching the replay and have questions, or if something came to mind after the stream ended, don't forget that our Discord and Patreon communities are available to you as well. They are great places to ask questions, share notes, discuss projects that you're considering, post photos of your setup, get feedback, and continue the conversation between streams. And for those of you who are following along in real time, keep an eye on Patreon for announcements, schedule updates, worksheets, resources, and any changes to upcoming streams and dates and all of that stuff. Next stream, which I really hope will be next week, depending on how everything goes with my current house projects, we are going to start shifting from planning to execution. Yeah, we are. We will be taking a close look at the physical tools and equipment that are used in home canning, identifying what everything is. We've already done this theoretically and in images, but we're gonna hopefully I'll have them physically in person for us to look at and talk about. Discuss what all the items do, talk about what's truly necessary, and prepare ourselves for our real recipe demonstration. In other words, we are moving one step closer to actually putting all of this knowledge into practice. And I have to say, I am super excited for that part. So thank you all for spending your time here with us, for participating in the discussion, for sharing your ideas during the kitchen workflow exercise, and just for being part of this series. I hope tonight helped make canning feel a little less overwhelming and a little more approachable. Whether you chatted or lurked or worked alongside us, or maybe just needed a calm place to exist for a while, I am really glad that you spent part of your day here with us. This is what this community is all about: building skills, building resilience, building community together, one step at a time. Remember, small steps, real skills, we figure it out together. If today felt good to you, the easiest way to support the space is simply coming back next stream. As I mentioned, Patreon and Discord are there if you want more connection, and P.S., a Discord revamp is coming soon that'll be more conducive to our learning style community, so keep an eye out for that. And thank you guys truly for being here. The linkages are all on the link tree. It's one of the best places to find everything. I will also drop the links in the chat as well, so you guys have access to those. And they are also in the YouTube video description, as well as in all of my profiles and bios and such. So find all content there. Make sure that you guys take good care of yourselves. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Oh my gosh, 92% love in the chat. Thank you. I love it. And that is true. I can vouch for that. Very true. Thanks for being here, John. Thanks for being here, Elijah. Thanks for being here, everybody. And take care. See you later.